marketers be worried about their jobs?
A lot will change. I'm really encouraging everyone to rethink their users or buyers' journeys.
And we're irrational beings. We make decisions based on how we feel that day. And there's certain tasks that machines just do better than humans. Welcome to the Privacy-Led Marketing Show, the place where we discuss the latest marketing news. I'm joined today by the co-host and Chief Marketing Officer at Usercentrics, Adelina. Hello, hi. Adelina brings over 20 years of experience in digital marketing and was working with AI way back in 2015, long before it was trendy. So she's seen all the evolution from AI thanks to her work in high-growth startup. We're also joined by our VP of Communications, Collette, who got her start in journalism and has worked across content and communications for the last 15 years. She most recently was working at two AI companies in Copenhagen, so we're really excited to have her here today. In today's show, we'll deep dive into the hottest topics that's got everyone talking, maybe talking a little bit too much. From Netscape to Chrome, browsers have long been our windows into the digital world. But all that clicking, scrolling, and reading web pages may be coming to an end as AI steps in to take greater control over how information flows and what we see next. So together, we're going to have a chat about something that's shaking up the marketing industry, Agentic AI. You might be wondering what exactly Agentic AI is and how it's different from all the other buzzwords we're getting around today. So Collette, you wrote a paper on the topic. Maybe you can kick us off by giving us some context.
Yeah, so I guess just to give a high-level idea for marketers, Agentic AI is basically built around a software that is interacting with its environment. And as it does that, it collects data, and then it uses that data to fulfill certain tasks. And those tasks are basically towards goals. So at the heart of this is a human that sets a goal and then gets an agent to do the work towards that goal.
Okay, sounds simple, but how is that actually impacting marketers?
I think marketers have been dealing with automation for a very long time. Like, we use all sorts of tools, everything that's fresh from a technical perspective. And this is just next in evolution. So it's enabling many more things. And now it's on one side, marketers will keep using this, which is yet another automation tool. On the other hand, now the shoppers, the buyers, the visitors will also have this in their power, where their AI agents will shop for them, will do tasks for them. So this will be a bit of a flip in the market, I think.
It's interesting you say that marketers are kind of always one step ahead. And obviously there's a lot of conversation about Agentic AI at the moment. But what topic around it do you think is not being spoken about enough?
I think with regards to this topic in particular, it's beyond just automating, but also the fact that the experience that you provide to your users and customers will change, because then, as you said, they don't interact with the pages and browsers anymore. They might just do things automatically based on a prompt as well. So you need to rethink how you build those experiences, how you stay on brand, and most importantly, also from our perspective at Usercentrics, how you respect their data.
Of course, because at the heart of this is it's safety, it's privacy. How do you think brands are going to work on getting customers to trust these new developments?
I think it's the same as with websites. You need to build that trust based on how you build the experience, the brand values that you have. And then again, with regards to data, right? Like, all the way from how you portray, you deal with the data privacy and respecting them and not spooking them with specific things after, just taking into account what they want and what they want for. And based on exchange of value, this transmits even more in this new environment.
I think this is also where first-party data becomes stronger and stronger, because that's where Agentic AI kind of gets its fuel, is from first-party data. So with first-party data, it's, very sensitive information. You have to build that trust to get that information, but you also have to do it in a consented way that respects the user's rights. So that's where, I guess, with the rise of first-party data, that's where the rise of privacy comes into it, because they go hand in hand. And what we see from research that we've done is that the more consumers are educated about how their data is being used, and not just in the kind of marketing automations, but outside the company, the less likely they are to consent to having it shared, because they just want to share it with the company they're dealing with. They don't want other people to have that data, which is fair enough. And I guess what we do is we try to respect that and enable it.
And would you say we've got a little bit of way to go? I think new research is saying that only 45% of internet users want to share that data and want to use Agentic AI. Do you think we're going to fastly approach that change where everyone's accepting of it? Or do you think there's going to be some...
I actually think these are high numbers given it's so early on. So I'm just expecting like a rapid adoption in this case. I'm just encouraging marketers to remember that the customers have matured a lot, especially with regards to their expectation on user experience and data privacy. So let's not be again like kids in a candy shop, like, oh, all this new technology and things I can do with it, but really think about it strategically.
I think that's why also the key point for marketers and marketing teams, first step with building AI or like having agentic AI in your kind of organization is the governance around that. What does it look like? It's not just about getting straight to the efficiency. I mean, it's great to think, okay, now my AI can do all my tasks for me. Fantastic. But I think one thing I've found, in the investigation of our own use of AI is as soon as I send the request to our IT and to our legal team, they flag so many issues because there is no data privacy, agreement. There's nothing in place with all these different companies for how they actually responsibly do that. So it's kind of like data governance comes first and then the actual work can start.
And how far do you see agentic AI actually going? I mean, should marketers be worried about their jobs? I know that's always a topic on everyone's minds.
It's not like we're left without jobs when laptops came in or so on, right? I think we'll adapt, and it's a matter of using this right to just empower ourselves. But a lot will change. Like, as I said, we need to rethink the experiences, what it means to go through your website or shop online and so on. So it really changes everything. And I think the first people that will adopt this, test it, and improve will be actually more in demand. And then we'll see, like, more opportunities will come, some will close. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree as well. I don't think that it's going to replace jobs. It's going to replace certain lines on the job description. So it's about the task-based level. And there's certain tasks that machines just do better than humans. I know for myself, a day without coffee or without the right sleep, and I make a few more mistakes. Agents don't do that. So there's certain things that they can do better than us, and we should just let them do that with the right guardrails and with the right checks and balances, from a legal and governance perspective. But then free us up to do the strategic thinking, to do the creative analysis, to come up with new ideas, to chat with our own teams and, our customers and do what marketers do best.
And is that where you see the kind of empty space? Is it the creative and the strategic parts that you think need the human touch versus what agentic AI is offering?
Yeah, I mean, I think humans' empathy, that is one thing that AI cannot crack. It can be given, as we said, a large set of data and it can find new insights within that data, but it doesn't know how that connects to a human and the human emotional side of things, and we're irrational beings. We make decisions based on how we feel that day, so
The weather.
yeah, exactly. We have data on that, how actually people's consent rates on our cookie banners, they actually change based on the day of like whether it was sunny or it was windy or it was watery or whatever it was. So human behavior changes. And yeah, I think again, it's interesting, like when we look at the website perspective, what does that mean? If we're creating websites through agents and then it's maybe agents that are going on there to do the shopping for us, how do we design that? And I think these are really interesting challenges for marketers, like
Yep.
how we rethink what we do. It's not the old playbook, but I think it's a, exciting period.
Yeah. It was business to consumer, right? B2C. I think now we're going to experience business to AI agent to consumer, because at the end, you still have to serve a human being, as you said, with all the emotional things. But if that human being is interacting with you via an AI agent, that changes, it brings up a whole other rationality in between and much more research that's possible. So it does change the game of marketing. And I think so far we got used to, the chat prompts, getting you some content, some whatever. Like, I think this was the last big thing in the world of marketing for last 2 years. But now it's about like completely rethinking your business, your website, your shop, and like having this, like what I'm gonna call B2A to C.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is it's like based on the whole digital experience out there. And we've known this for a long time. As marketers, we've had to turn up in TikTok, Twitter, websites, all social channels, Reddit, and we've expanded across every area, and that's really taxing. But what we see now, I think, with particularly with generative AI and ChatGPT coming forward, now they start to weight all those different communities and review sites just as equally as our websites. And that's where people who've invested in brand and actually having a unique kind of perspective and also a big community around their brand, they're winning with AI, because it's leveling the field. It's not just about, do you have a big budget where you can make a big flashy website and, drive traffic to that through paid. It's about, have you actually connected with your customers? Do you have a community around that? Do they care about what you're doing? Are they engaged? Do they like you?
Nothing will beat that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how are you using Agentic AI at Usercentrics?
Well, I think primarily we're building the foundation. So as I said before, going through testing and trialing various tools, that requires a lot of legal support. So we're also figuring out internally how we can collect more and more of our own data. So our first party data. So we've got transcriptions on meetings. We're feeding that into a GPT. We've also got a really comprehensive content and brand guidelines. So we've fed that in there. And what this does is it enables not just our marketing team, but the whole company to talk kind of on brand and to also be able to produce content. So I think it's like very much the foundational blocks that we're testing and trialing to see what works and then how can we pull that into an agentic system.
And is this adoption quite common within the marketplace in the industry, or do you like to think you're a bit ahead of the curve?
I think with regards to content, a lot of companies have been doing it already, or at least marketing people, but it's about what you said around actually build it on brand, on your content guidelines. Maybe this is what I'm saying, to make it more strategic and not just like a tool that different people use in different ways. And there's going to be a whole evolution, right? Like this is still like, and maybe some custom GPTs, right? Like we train for specific people to talk like them, but it's about the evolution to AI agents will be a next step. So it's really early days. What we're already thinking, because at Usercentrics, one of the solutions we have is consent management platforms. And the part where users interact is the banner that's on the websites where they know what data is being collected, sent to where, what use it for, and stuff like that. We're already rethinking the web experience or online experience, right? Because it's not going to be anymore about when you come in, but about your whole journey, especially if you use AI agents on both sides. So as I said, for the user and for the company. And it's more about each of these interactions. And we're really angling a lot on the exchange of value, which creates micro moments rather than macro moments. Another recommendation I would make to marketers, it's again, this strategic thinking around move from someone came in on your website or shop or whatever it is, versus all these micro moments when you will interact with the user or with the AI agent, and how that value is exchanged and what data you need for each point. And let's remember, like a big transformation in the marketing world lately has been, we're not dealing just with data anymore. We are dealing with consented data and doing marketing in a respectful way.
It's all very exciting. Do you think there's a danger that some companies are getting ahead of themselves too quickly?
Well, I think we've already seen that, not to mention any names, but some big companies have put forward an AI first strategy and had a huge backlash because basically they've said we are replacing people, outsource the creative content, to agents. And the backlash has come from the consumers. So people were, in on their social channels making a lot of comments to the fact that they had to actually shut things down. And I think that's really concerning. But I think that also is what happens when you go too hard and too fast into something that you don't quite understand and you don't take your people along with you. So I guess I can say, at least at our company, we see that this is an enabler. This is about something we give to our staff and our employees across the board to do their jobs faster and easier so that we can take them to the next level and they can bring that additional support, to the strategy and to the creative thinking. So it's an enabler in that regard. So we're not losing something, we're just speeding up certain tasks. But I think we're lucky because we have a really strong data privacy backbone. We have a great legal team, so they are able to deep dive into all the issues, to fact check all of the different tools to figure out what's going on. So I think that's exciting, and that also is something we can share with people. I think that is our aim. We'd love to be able to educate the market on this, on what works, what doesn't. I think we have a great role in that. As we know, like going forward in marketing, it's all around consent and also your data. So building that out contextually, as Adelina said, is so exciting. I've been speaking to different brands and companies at various events this year, and no one's doing this. They're not thinking about how do you collect consent outside of the website. They don't ever ask again, would you like to share more information with us? Can we ask you some more questions? Can we interview, get some more insights, whether it's first or zero party data? No one's even thinking about that. They're just leaving the kind of consent journey to a website banner. And people say yes or no, and maybe occasionally they customize it, but it's a bit like a very basic move when it comes to consent. So I think there's a huge opportunity for people to kind of go further on this. And then that gives them the great first-party data to use in their agents. Then they can build processes and personalization and true customization for users. And then they get the journey and experience of their product that people want. how they like it. And I think that's super exciting.
So you mentioned there that you have a lot of support internally with a big legal team, but what would your advice be for marketers working in small teams?
I think there's a couple of really key questions you can ask. In an email, it doesn't need to be super, high level, but just try to find out where do they get their models from. We obviously know that there's a big difference between being in Europe and the US, for instance, or China, and also what data are they using to train the models, and how would that data be shared? And also kind of, I guess, longer term, how often do they refresh the data? So that just helps you understand their kind of risk profile for bias, inaccuracy, and also data leaks.
And this is on the tool side, but I would say you need to look at what you're doing as well as a marketer. So I'm really encouraging everyone to rethink their users or buyers' journeys. It's super important because, again, you won't control that much. Okay, come to the homepage and then you go here and then you pass through this consent banner and so on. Everything will be much more to the point where these AI agents will be able to navigate your website looking exactly for what they need, finding the right information, but the experience will change for the user. What aspects will matter will change. And I really advise on this, like thinking micro moments, thinking contextual, with the perspective of how that will be personalized for the user, but through the AI. So without the user having to actually go through all these pages. And the sooner we as marketers rethink that, the better it will be. And this is something to already really start preparing.
That's some really interesting insight that you've given, but I'd love to wrap up by asking what your big predictions are for Agentic AI.
I think that you're going to start to see people like us, marketers, actually launching products ourselves more so. So what I've loved seeing as a journalist, my industry got disrupted many times over. Everyone's a writer and anyone can produce content now. The same thing's happening for coding. I think it's leveling the playing field, and I think we're going to see a new wave of new interesting products. The whole SaaS industry is built on developers coding based on a particular use case. And as we say, Agentic AI can then do the hyper-personalization. They can build on those micro moments. So I think we're going to see some really fun and interesting products popping up from everywhere. Marketers, yourself, like a TV presenter, anyone could create a product with this ability. And, maybe it's not the fully fledged thing. Maybe it's not going to go to 1 billion ARR, but it could be something that's very useful and fun for 50 people. And I think that's really cool.
I think I have 2 predictions and 1 wish. One is definitely this will skyrocket in terms of adoption. I truly, truly believe that. So it's going to happen really fast. We're all looking at each other, right? Who's doing what and so on. But I think we're going through this together and quite fast. Second is I believe this will bring true personalization, because until now, the personalization that we're aiming to give was a bit forced and maybe not fitting or spooking out people in some cases. But now it's the best context to actually give that personalization, because you will give people exactly what they need and doing things for them, automatically searching and booking or any of these things. And my wish is that we take this super seriously. And as I said at the beginning, it's not just where kids in candy shop, yes, another shiny new technology, but to truly think, okay, we have matured. We've been in the digital space for decades now. The consumers also learn their rights and what they truly want. So we need to treat this much more strategically than just as a tool adoption of sorts.
Those are some great predictions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's all we have time for today, but we'll be back very soon. In the meantime, you can tell us what big changes AI will make in your job in 2025. Let us know in the comments, and maybe we'll discuss the topic in our next episode. We'll be back very soon with our marketing news roundup, so make sure you hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss it. See you then.